podcast. We have a fun guest for you guys today. Christina Garnett is a fractional chief customer officer, trust strategist, author, and keynote speaker. Operating through her venture Neuemotion, she advises executive teams and high-growth companies on building customer trust infrastructure, scaling customer advocacy, and treating brand customer relationship as emotional, highly leverageable assets. She is the author of Transforming Customer Brand Relationships and the creator of the Customer Trust Equation. Previously, she served as principal marketing manager at HubSpot, where she built and scaled HubFans customer advocacy program. Today, her work at Neuemotion helps organizations bridge the gap between audience engagement, community building, and long-term customer lifetime value. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you're obviously smack dab in the middle of, thing. A lot of founders and a lot of executives are trying to figure out how do they operate in this world where LinkedIn isn't just a place where people go to find sales leads or look for jobs or post their most recent awards. It's a huge opportunity for brands of all sizes, both B2B and B2C, to leverage, but it also behaves differently than typical social media platforms. I'd be curious if you could maybe take us back to the beginning. Where'd you grow up? What'd you study? And how'd you get into kind of the B2B marketing world and on the path that you're on now?
Yeah, so I was an English major. I'm originally from North Carolina, went to Davidson for my undergrad. And once I graduated, because Davidson has a kind of level of clout, specifically academically, I wound up going to a teaching fair and was offered a job to teach math. And I wound up teaching math for 5 years.
Wow.
First year was public, 4 years private. And that kind of actually makes sense to me because I'm very much qualitative and quantitative. I'm both. I love the creative side, but I also love the data side. And so I see that even in my teaching and background career. And then once I got into marketing, years later, it just became very clear that I was learning from not only that left brain, right brain, but also the differentiated instruction that I was taught as a teacher and how to specifically cater your learning and your lessons to different learning styles. Some people are auditory, some people are visual, some people are kinesthetic. And so that continued that little string throughout my career. And then I wound up working for the Small Business Development Center in my area, which is a subset of the SBA, the Small Business Administration, where they provide consulting for clients who are interested in either starting a small business or they've been running a small business or they can't wait to leave and they need an exit strategy. And so I kind of saw everything from I had a dream last night, I want to start a business, to get me out of here, and kind of everything in between. And so helping business owners has been a lifelong love of mine. It's everyday problem solving. Usually the budget is a problem, but always like a myriad of problems that they're facing and challenges. And it's always trying to figure out like how to get the puzzle pieces together in the right way so that they can be successful, but they can also do what they love. They can take care of their customers, all those things. And then during that process, I was working with agencies. I worked at ICUC. I was doing social strategy and creating playbooks for Fortune 500 brands. COVID hit during that time period. So I was like, I even wrote a piece for the Next Web about how social media managers are basically being paid to plug in, even when you're literally paid to keep up with what's the worst that's happening online. And so that was a massive learning for me. And so as I continued to grow and evolve my career, it just became very clear that I like to see things from like a full 360 approach. And so when I joined HubSpot, I was working in community and customer advocacy and was trying to figure out how can we really take care of our customers, because HubSpot has a lot of fans. Yeah. And so when I joined, the first thing I did was basically say, like, if you're a fan, I want you to slide into my DMs. I want to talk to you. I want to interview you. I want to learn more about what is it? Like, why do you like us? And when was the last time you felt like we loved you in return? And so that led to a lot of learnings where I built the HubFans program, which was a community. It had a gamified segment, but then I also created the inbound correspondence program, which was a way for us to treat our customers like influencers. They got a ticket to inbound. They got to share their perspective, like what talks they liked, what was it like being there, all of those things. And so when I left to go fractional and start my own consultancy, I love B2B because I find that it is so relationally based, but we don't like to talk about it like it's relationally based. And so I think right now, especially with like the creator economy, and as we're seeing B2C versus B2B play out in the creator space, and it feels like B2B is finally accepted that like that is a lever that should be pulled. It's very interesting to see kind of the learnings to be like, well, it always comes down to trust. It always comes down to relationships. It always comes down to who you believe in. And so whether you pull that lever with your customer advocates or with your employees, with employee generated content, or with creators, that's what you're really trying to do, is you're trying to harness that trust. And that really kind of goes through my entire career.
I love it. Talking about building kind of that, that fan loyalty, the HubFans program, and how you leveraged, your own community of fans to basically build kind of your own influencer network amongst your users and fans. Do you feel like every B2B brand has the opportunity to do that? HubSpot, obviously a massive brand. And, to some degree, we all sell, and we all probably could use a CRM, whether we have one or not, whether we're a massive enterprise or an independent fractional or solopreneur. But do you feel like most B2B companies should go through the exercise of trying to figure out, like, could they build a fan advocacy platform of their own, or is their niche just too niche?
I think there's an opportunity to create an advocacy program, but I think just kind of like the same way that brands handle surprise and delight, it's putting the cart before the horse. I think if you want advocates, I think that's a really good goal. I think having and creating a brandum is important, but I think you need to take a few steps back first. And instead of saying like, we need an advocacy program, you need to think like, are we providing a product and service that would make someone love us anyway? Are we doing something that would make someone want to be a fan of us? Because I joke all the time that, and the reason why when I left, I wanted to do more of like the CCO work was because when you're talking about advocacy, there's so many people that touch the customer, and it's not just support, that you wind up looking at it myopically and think, I can just give this person swag and they're going to love us. But there are people that touched that person before they got to me that would dictate whether or not they actually wanted to work with me or not. Like, how was their experience with social? How was their experience with sales? How was their onboarding process? All of that really colored how they felt about us, so that when they got to me, they either couldn't wait to talk to me and do more, or I was having to apologize for a relationship I didn't break. And so I think wanting an advocacy program is definitely fantastic. I think customer marketing is incredibly important. But I would go through the steps of, are we doing anything that's rave worthy anyway? Do we already have fans? And if so, what are we doing to them? Like I see so many protocols with social listening where they have a full scale workflow for when someone says something bad on Twitter or LinkedIn or somewhere else. But when someone says they love them, nothing happens. You never see the founder in there. And it was like, how are you treating the people that love you anyway? Even if it's like one person. Like, how do you show up for them when they love you? Because I think that as brands, we take that love for granted, and we assume that they're going to keep saying they love us in the chat. If you don't tell them that back, then you're conditioning them to believe that they're only going to get your attention when they're mad at you. And so they're only going to speak up when they're mad at you. And that's the last thing that brands want. Yeah,
that's cool. Thinking of this idea of like the difference between a user and a fan. And the idea of just how, like, when you are a fan in a B2B context, or if you become an evangelist because you just love a tool so much, it's different than, the consumer world. Like, I might be a really great fan of this, La Colombe coffee. And there are certain consumer brands that are life-changing. The user experience, Apple comes to mind. The user experience is just so revolutionary that you're going to go tell all your friends and advocate on behalf of it. But in work, when you find a tool that kind of supercharges you and makes you better at your job, it just is so much more impactful and meaningful. And it also has, direct results on how much you can earn, how much money you can make, especially in the sales function. So how did you kind of think about the idea of, product design and product marketing from the context of like what's a user and what's a fan, and how to identify those power users that could then light advocacy and word of mouth marketing on fire for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're thinking about things, especially if, and language matters. So if you call someone a customer versus a user versus everything else, even though that seems like that just seems like semantics, it actually plays a very significant role, because just by a customer, in order to qualify as a customer, obviously there's revenue involved. User, by calling someone a user, you are directly saying their relationship is not to the brand, but to the product itself, because they're using the product. And so people want to be closer to the brand the more they care about it. And so what I find is that brands have the opportunity to create a mutually beneficial relationship once they do the work of finding out who their fans are. So social listening is highly important. If you're not already talking to your social media team, if you're not already talking to your community team, if you have one, or your support, they already know, probably off the top of their head, they can tell you who loves you, who's always raising their hand, who would love to do a referral, who would love to do that. Those people are priceless. But you need to not see them as an opportunity for growth, but an opportunity for like co-marketing and mutually beneficial relationships. Because what you'll want to do is you'll want to talk to that person and say like, hey, we'd love a referral, or we'd love a customer testimonial, or we'd love all these things. You can ask for the same deliverable, but in a different way that makes them want to jump through hoops for you. Because you're making it worth their while. So instead of saying like, hey, we'd love to do a customer story, instead of, hey, next quarter, we're going to do something on this specific feature, which we know you and your team use quite significantly. We would love to feature you in an academy video where you're able to do a demo and you get to teach people how you use the product. We're going to feature your CMO and they're going to get to talk about like how this worked for them. And we're going to create an entire campaign. So now it goes from you're doing work for us to this is a co-marketing campaign. So now our entire audience is going to know about your company, and not just as a testimonial, but as a, this is what we do and this is how they use it. And like, it's the same ask, but you've added what makes it important for them. And that changes everything. That changes the relationship. It no longer sounds like a favor. It sounds like an opportunity. Like all of that is hugely important. And brands are always trying to get testimonials. They're always trying to get customer stories. But if you start treating it like a co-marketing play instead of an ask, you're going to see more return. You're going to see that's another campaign that you can now add, that you can put money behind, that you can promote, that you can be a part of your like editorial campaigns, like all of these things. And all you did differently was you invited the customer to be a part of the win.
Yeah, you basically invited them to co-create versus be part, do work on your behalf, like you said, like, be in our video, like, of course, all those things are flattering, but they come through so much stronger when there's either compensation for their time, or if it's not compensation, like you mentioned at the start of the show, free trip to the user conference.
Yep.
I just got invited to one of those from Braze, which I was super excited about.
Yep.
And then
it makes you feel seen. It makes you feel
good. Totally. And I turned, and Amazon asked me to come up to San Francisco the same week, and I said I was already booked, because they, it wasn't just, Amazon's bigger than Braze, but Braze is paying, accommodations and hotel, and they asked sooner. So, all those things matter, right?
It makes a huge difference. And then those people are able to give you R&D. Like that's the thing too, that I find that customer base is so underutilized and so taken for granted. If you are, so like to get to an earlier question, you talked about like, do you want to create an advocacy program? My first question when brands come to me and say like, hey, we'd love to build a community, my first ask is, do you have a CAB? Do you have a customer advisory board? These are people who would like, hey, we see that you are a diehard fan. We see that you are a power user. We know that you have all these things. What we'd love to do, we're going to create a social card. You can announce it on LinkedIn that you were selected to be a part of this CAB. Once a quarter, you get to do an hour-long Zoom call. You get to meet with maybe our CMO. You get to meet with our product team. You get to tell them what you love, what you hate, what ideas you have. So these people now, what you're doing is you're giving them real estate, essentially. You're giving them an opportunity to have ownership and have a bigger play in directing where the company goes. And then let's say that in one of those CAB meetings, a power user mentioned something that your team has never thought of or didn't think was possible. And what they'll do is most of the time, not only will they tell you what your next feature should be, they'll tell you how they would code it themselves. They'll tell you how, like, here's how I would try to make it work. And then when you ship that feature, they tell every person they've ever met like it's their next child. Like,
because they feel ownership in it.
It's ownership. So now you have a one-person marketing team that's doing all of this for you. And so you get free advertising, you get voice of the customer that is earnest and earned and believable. You also get the opportunity for that person to feel even more connected and deeper. So now like that becomes a moat, because anyone can beat you on price, anyone can beat you on feature, but who's going to listen to you and give you opportunity and make you feel like you're a part of this company? It's those things. Like, you can't manufacture that. You can't AI that. You can't do, like, that is the moat. You want someone to stick, you want someone to have higher lifetime value. It's that stuff.
It's ownership of the product and being part of the team and part of the community, which, you can't have with everybody, but you can have with those sticky evangelists at the top of your word of mouth funnel. I love it. All right, let's talk a little bit about Neuemotion. So, I did a little bit of research before the show, great client set, LinkedIn, Webflow, Toast, to name a few, staying true to your B2B roots. But tell us a little bit of, it sounded like you're also positioning Neuemotion as kind of a external agency that is brought in as an internal marketing team. So I'd just be curious a little bit around, why did you guys decide to launch this group and this consultancy, and then how do you work together? Because you guys are all fractionals doing other exciting things too. But just tell me a little bit about Neuemotion and how it came to be and who's involved.
Yeah, so Neuemotion is the child of Ted Harrison. He's brilliant. He was the former head of production at Twitter/X. And so he left to create Neuemotion. I'm the only fractional person there. Everyone else is full time. I have my own pocket CCO consultancy. But when I left HubSpot to create my own thing, Ted slid into my DMs to be like, hey, I'd love to work with you. What are you doing? How can we make this work? And so I came on as their fractional chief customer officer. And then as they grew, I took on more and started doing PR. I do our awards program. I'm the one like pitching us for quotes and op-eds and features. And we've got Webbies, and we've gone out for basically all of the major awards. We have a Webby, we have a Shorty Impact, a regular Shorty, we have a Communicator Award, all those things. And it's an amazing team of creatives, of production, of all the things. And so what we want to do is be that arm that 360 arm for B2B brands. And we work really well. Sometimes we are brought in and we are basically running it like we're an in-house team. And other times we are basically your social media team's best friend. When you need extra help, when you need a copywriter, when you need motion graphics, when you need all these things. And so the Neuemotion team is really special. It's basically, and the thing that I love about working with them most is that there is this understanding of like toxic agency culture. And Ted has made a point not to build that. He's made a point to build something where we play really well together. We win as a team, we lose it as a team, and we love our clients. We love working with our clients. They love working with us. We were named a best ad age, best places to work this year.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And as the comms person, I'm going through the steps for like the next one. So like for next year, I'm doing that paperwork now. So it's all that stuff, but it really is just a lot of really brilliant people coming together to take care of B2B brands and showcasing what creativity really looks like. And it doesn't have to be boring, and it doesn't have to be safe. We don't have to light a brand on fire either, but there is this real appreciation for what creativity looks like in the B2B space, and we celebrate that.
I love it. What do you think is the key to success in B2B storytelling to rise above what would be considered kind of the old, white paper features list? It seems like the things that are breaking through these days are, using more methodologies maybe that the consumer channel is quite familiar with, humor, leading into the idea that business is human and people buy from people, not from companies. Yeah. But be curious if there are some things that kind of are must-haves in the work that you guys are doing with clients today.
Yeah, so a lot of our work is science-backed. We love behavioral science. We love paying attention to what people pay attention to. And so a lot of our work is really, like you said, reminding people that like your customers are human. And whether it's a B2B decision or a B2C decision, there is usually a science-backed approach at looking at that, whether it be how your brain works, how it pays attention, or reactance theory. We have a weekly newsletter called The Science Behind, where we break down these science-backed concepts and relate it to what it looks like for B2B teams. And so we're always trying to translate that science for everyone, not just our clients, so that they understand that, like, these are still people. These are still people who want to laugh, who want to cry, who want to hit a break from the day, who get cognitive overload when there's just too many facts in a deck slide. It's all those things and bringing that together, and at the same time having fun.
I love that. All right, let's talk a little bit about your book, Transforming the Customer Brand Relationship. What was it that was kind of eating at you where you're like, oh, this is enough for me to commit pen to paper and write a book about it?
It really comes down to the fact that there's tons of CX books, there's tons of marketing books, there's tons of like customer focused books, but there's nothing really bringing all of these moving pieces together. And for me, I've sat at the support desk, and I've sat in community and advocacy and social and CX and all these things, and they have got to work together. For you to really create a customer experience that's worthwhile, it has to go across the entire org. There is no single department that's going to own it all, because they physically can't create the entire relationship. And so for me, it was, how do I showcase what actually building these customer brand relationships mean? So it's storytelling, it's word of mouth, it's community, it's brandom, it's paying attention, it's what does it look like when things shift? How do you build trust? What does that look like? And so across the board, it's in 3 pieces. The first piece is about like what builds those relationships, what are all the moving pieces. And then the second is, how do you build a community? Because I believe that community is a silo killer, and that's how we're all going to get on board. We're going to be able to collaborate thoughtfully, come together, and everyone from an intern to the CEO is going to be able to talk to customers and really build connection. And then the third piece is, what happens when all of that gets thrown apart? Like AI is disrupting things. Maybe you're a beloved brand, but you got acquired by a company that no one likes. That's going to change things. Like, how do you navigate that? And so we talk about PR crisis and how to handle things and how to repair what's broken, whether you broke it on purpose or not. And so it really is about, how do we foster these customer brand relationships so that we can actually have and move beyond transactional behavior.
What is the customer trust equation?
So the customer trust equation is something that I came up with because I kept trying to figure out and you know this, if you can't measure something and you can't quantify something, then no one cares. Then it's just vibes. It's just vibes. And like, I don't know what to do with that. And so there is a normal trust equation, like a regular trust equation for advisors. And I kept trying to use that to figure out, like, how could I make this a thing for customers? And I kept trying to shoehorn it into things, and it never worked for me. And so I looked at my work, I talked to other people, I did social listening, looked at consumers, and tried to see, like, are there any patterns? Are there things when like people talk about why they trust a brand, why they don't trust a brand? Or is there any kind of pattern of what's showing up? And so what I wound up coming up with, trust equals consistency plus response plus value plus connection minus friction. And it takes all of those moving pieces. There isn't one single way to destroy something, but it can be a combination of them. Or maybe something is so bad that it doesn't matter how consistent you were, the friction's too much. And so it's all of those pieces that live across the entire org, because there's not one department that runs all of that, but it's all those moving pieces. And that's how you build trust. That's how you're actually seeing, like, are we really doing the work instead of going through the motions to actually make sure people believe in us, that they understand what we say. And so consistency, that's kind of self-explanatory. Are you showing up? Are you doing things consistently? But also, what is that like across your org? Because you talk to marketing and they're one way, you talk to sales, they're another way, you go through onboarding, that's a whole different experience. The handoff is a mess. So even though it might feel like you're consistent, the tonality, the behavior, the handoff doesn't feel the same from department to department. Response, how do you show up? Good, bad, ugly. And is it measured? Or does it feel like, if I say something mean to you, can I tell that it's your social media team, or can I tell that that's legal, rolling in with like a policy that, like, we can't change a word of this? And then value. You could have a really great product, but people don't or aren't able to articulate or feel what the value is to them. Like there's a lot of really expensive products and services that people will pay easily because they can tell the value. There's a lot of cheap stuff that no one would pay for, and it has nothing to do with the value. The price has everything to do with the value. And so you could do things, a lot of things right, but if people don't see the value in what you offer, they're not going to trust you. There's not that there. And then connection. We keep trying to automate things to try to drive efficiency, to try to make things quicker. But what that winds up doing is it winds up creating a separation between the humans that are actually paying the bills and doing the work and all of that. And we need that connection to feel like they get us. No one feels connected to a no reply email. Like nobody. Yeah. No one's like, oh, they understand. Like nothing says, oh, we heard you. We saw your complaints, like an Instagram post with an apology, but they turned the comments off. Yeah. Like that removes the connection. And then friction. Everyone's got that thing where we've gotten an email and we're trying to unsubscribe, but I need to like have a magnifying glass.
Or you have to call your Amex card to put a block on some SaaS tool that you no longer want to use anymore.
Yeah, and so you could be doing everything else correctly, but it's too hard to work with you. It's too hard to unsubscribe, or it's too hard to pay you. Like that too. There's a lot of, and there's good friction and bad friction. Like all friction isn't bad, but when you're looking at the friction, we tend to look at the friction that we're eliminating from internal side and not external. And so we'll create a workflow, we'll create like an entire drip campaign, but we never think about what does that look like on the user side. We'll go through it, we'll send ourselves, but when you do that, you're just checking to make sure like, yep, that sent the email that was supposed to come in next. Yep, I said it should have a 3-day delay. It showed up with a 3, like what you're doing is you're checking the boxes, not checking the experience. So you're not saying like, how does this drip campaign feel as a user? You're saying like, does the drip campaign do what I want it to do? Those are two very different questions. And so people can tell when they're being automated. People can tell when they're being put in a workflow. People can tell that like, you didn't get my first name right. It's just your CRM had that locked in and you used a smart contact. Like that's table stakes. That's not personalization anymore. And so we need to, when we're looking at the trust equation, but when we're looking at just general customer brand relationships, we need to be really thoughtful about what we automate and what we need to make sure is human, because what you feel connected to, it's going to be harder to leave. Like if you're a part of a community, you might want to leave because like, oh, I just don't want to have to pay for that monthly, or I don't like, we have a massive renewal coming up and I don't want to pay that in one big piece. But you're not just saying no to the money. You're saying no to everyone that you've met there. You're saying no to the events you have access to. You're like, it's not a clean break. And so connection makes it not a clean break, which means you're more likely to stay, which is what as brands want. We want retention.
We talk a little bit about pricing elasticity and how that plays into the psychology of consumer trust. I found that, products like Apollo, for instance, giving you the ability as a salesperson to have 100 credits a month, and you can actually accomplish quite a lot with that tool with the freemium version. But then every account that I've ever signed up for every company that I've been a fractional biz dev or salesperson for, I always end up evangelizing it to the larger organization, increasing our credit amounts, increasing our user seats. Could you talk about the psychology around freemium or trials, but then also the pricing elasticity of something like a credits-based model where you can scale up and scale down easily as your team grows and contracts, especially when you're dealing with, SMB or startups?
Yeah. So whenever you're listening to anyone that's, especially in a startup environment where every penny counts and they're trying to make it go as far as humanly possible, like bootstrapping everything, they are making high stress level decisions. And we don't lack market. Like there's, if you pick any kind of problem you could have, if there's any solution for it, there's always a couple people showing up. And now with AI and vibe coding, if there isn't a competitor tomorrow, there'll be a competitor the day after that. As soon as they realize you have market share, someone's going to come in and offer something similar. So the red ocean exists. So you need to be looking for ways to build trust, to be able to showcase that you have the best option. And a lot of times you're not going to beat people on features. You're not going to beat people on sometimes you're not even going to beat them on pricing, but what you can beat them on is trust and actually being able to showcase that the product wins. And so a freemium model is a perfect opportunity to be able to showcase what it can do, because what that does is that reduces risk. And not only increases trust, but it reduces risk. And whenever you are in a startup environment, it feels high risk, high reward. And so anytime you can be their partner or their friend to go in there and be like, we understand that you're just starting off. We understand that you're growing. We understand that you're not going to be like an enterprise client tomorrow. But what we're doing is we're giving you a relationship today so that when you do grow, we get to be a part of that growth. And then what we're doing is we're making a long-term bet on you. Freemium models I really like because I think it showcases long-term thinking. A lot of brands have destroyed a lot of brand equity because they have so focused on the conversion that they get you to convert once, but they have completely like made you angry, made you feel taken advantage of, you feel lied to. And so they get the first bite, but you will never use them again because they were so focused on the first bite. You should be focused on long game. You should be focused on them being like, hey, this is a startup, but in 10 years, they're a unicorn and we are a part of their story. And now like they just send Brinks trucks to us once a month. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's because you're doing the long game. So you don't have to make everything free. I obviously want people to make their money. I want there to be revenue. There needs to be a revenue model. But you need to create, if especially something that needs to be high trust, that is complicated, that you want to prove is actually valuable to them, you have to give them some way of showcasing that it's worth their time, their money, and their investment. And a deck alone is not going to do that. You need to let them play in the tool. You need to let them win. Essentially, you need to not treat them like a zero-sum game. You need to treat it like, I love game theory, and I joke that like you can't treat this like a finite game. You got to treat it like an infinite game. I want you to enjoy playing with me, that you want to keep playing with me. You want to play with me for the rest of the time. Like, we are always going to battle. We are always going to have fun. That is what you want. And if the whole point is I'm going to beat you and you're going to pay me, no, I don't want to play again. I'm going to go find a competitor. I'm going to look for someone who has better pricing. I'm going to look for someone who maybe is nicer in an email, but I'm going to look for someone else. You got to look past that short game. You got to want to do more than just win once. You want to win over and over and over and over again together. That's the play.
Many founders treat customer experience as reactive cost center, a cost center and a support function. How do you help leadership teams reframe CX into a proactive engine for net revenue retention?
So I would say that CX is actually the best growth lever that companies have. And It is the most underutilized. The reason I say that is because obviously I don't need to pull the numbers, but it's less expensive to keep a customer than it is to get a new one. That's advertising money you don't have to spend. That's perks, that's pricing volatility that you don't have to deal with. Keeping them happy keeps your retention numbers great. On top of that, when those people, if they have an experience worth raving about, they're going to talk about you for free. So that's influencers you don't have to pay for. That's ads you don't have to pay for. That's this spend you don't have to do. That's marketing you don't have to do, because they become the thing. What I look at across my entire career, and I continue to look at with every single advancement in technology, every single advancement, there's one thing that has not changed. The voice of the customer and word of mouth wins always. AEO, people trying to like spend all their time in Reddit to try to get people to talk about them. All that is AI reading word of mouth.
Totally true.
It's aggregated word of mouth. And so if you start treating your customer, like, the best advice I can give anybody is like one sentence answer. What's your best advice? It's start treating your customers like influencers, because they are. If I have someone I've never met say something great about your product, but then I have a best friend who is a customer I know of and they have the worst thing, who am I believing?
Yeah, it's going to be your friend every time.
It's going to be your friend because I trust them. And so if you have an influencer talking great things about you, but I know someone who is absolutely a customer, it doesn't matter what they tell me, that's gospel. I believe that. And so you are trying to outmarket your customer experience. You are trying to outmarket, out-ad, out-influencer your customers, when what you could be doing is treating them so well that they would never leave. They want to tell every single person about you, and they become their own engine. So you've got net new revenue that they can bring in for you. You've got the retention numbers are great. They're going to create word of mouth. So now you have like positive content and sentiment around your brand that you don't have to pay for. Chewy is a great example of this. Chewy is like proof positive that like you can be nice to work with. You can be empathetic. You can take care of your customers. They go viral all the time. Like someone even said something negative about them on Reddit a couple days ago, and then an entire fan army swooped in to be like, nope, that's actually an outlier. That's not what they do. And like things like priceless. Like it's not even a matter of like you couldn't pay for it. Like it's not viable. And so it's that kind of energy. It's the word of mouth. Like customers are my personal opinion, the growth engine, and not enough brands utilize it, take advantage of it, really kind of showcase. They're too busy playing the short game. They want to play and get the new customer that they completely forget that like they're over here dating somebody that they need. Like keep playing that game. You keep playing that game, they're going to invite more people to show up. That's what you need to do. It's all long game.
So the Chewy example, is that similar to like the, support marketing function of like a Zappos, where it's like over the top, extreme acts of generosity, and really like designing those word of mouth moments, those viral word of mouth moments, by empowering a culture to go so far above and beyond that it seems like outlandish, and then it becomes kind of content for not only great word of mouth campaigns, but if that story finds its way into social media or other channels, then it has the same opportunity to travel.
Yep. It's perfect. And you see it with their leadership too. Like the founder of Chewy has talked about how like every now and then he works support. He goes in there on the front lines and he sees what they're doing. And what they're doing is they're creating core memories, which is so important to me. So like what they're doing is and I think what Zappos did and what Chewy did is they are not acting transactionally. And so it feels weird. It feels like you said, like it's being overly generous. What it is they're treating it like a relationship. Your pet dies. They not only are going to say like, hey, we'll go ahead and cancel that. You don't need to worry about it. Oh, you have extra food. You can just donate it to a shelter. But we're going to send you condolence flowers and a card and maybe a painting of your dog or your cat or your animal. They are doing things where they show up as a human, not as a company. And because of that, they, especially for what they do, they understand that people's pets are a core part of their life, like they are a part of their family. And so if you get a painting of your animal, you're going to keep that for the rest of your life. Now that's a keepsake. So that's a keepsake that you're going to keep in your home. It's attached to something that you absolutely adore. And it's also attached to a brand that showed up for you in a way that they didn't have to. You are never going to stop talking about that. You are going to talk about that for the rest of your life. And whenever you need their product or service, it's not even top of mind. It is the only thing in mind. Like that's a way to not only get at the top of the list, you are the list, because who else is going to take care of you like that?
Have you ever heard of a B2B brand acting in that kind of overtly outlandish, just like obsessed, customer success obsessive? I find it hard for me to think of an example. There's a lot of products that I really love because of how sleek and useful they are, but I have never met a customer service team or a sales team that have just gone above and beyond in that way.
I think, well, they can be B2B and B2C, but Canva, I think, does a really great job.
Interesting.
Especially with their conference. They make it very clear that they want to celebrate the people who use their product. And so they're inviting people out. They also have like monetization tools so you can create with them, and then that becomes a premium product. Like,
is that the one that happens in LA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say Canva is starting to do that.
Okay.
They're always looking for users and how they utilize the product and how they can be a part of it. I think that I don't think anyone does things the way Chewy does. I think that's very much like a special example. But I think Canva does a really good job of showcasing what is possible. And they just genuinely celebrate the people who use them. And I think that that's just really priceless. I think that's very special. And that's what I think is very interesting is in my book, I talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how you can use that for customers. And at the very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like self-actualization. If brands are trying to become a part of someone's life, they should look at like, what part can we play in self-actualizing someone? So because they used our product, now they're an artist. Because they used our product, now they're able to be an entrepreneur. Because they used our product, now they're able to buy a house that they never could have afforded, or they get to take their family on nice vacations, or they get to be a thought leader or a speaker or a keynote speaker at a conference. That's all self-actualization. So it's not like, this is how we helped you. It's, this is how we changed your life. That becomes a huge part. So now it's not just about like, hey, what's your story? It's, we are a part of your story now. We are a part of how you were able to build your life, how you were able to change things, how you're able to do things you never thought possible. For B2B brands, I think that's incredibly important. I think there's opportunities there for sure.
That's exciting. All right. During your time leading advocacy at HubSpot, we talked about the HubFans program. What was the key to making corporate advocacy initiative feel like a genuine community rather than a marketing tactic?
I had to care. And that's the thing, is you can't, that's either you care or you don't. And so I had a lot of times where one of the things that I would do is, if someone that was an advocate for me was sharing something, even if it had absolutely nothing to do with us, I was sharing it, I was commenting, I was amplifying. So I wasn't amplifying just their advocacy of us, I was amplifying them. And so what I like to say is, like, be a fan of the fans. You have to care. And so I'm not just going to celebrate you because you posted something. I'm celebrating you because I'm celebrating you. I want to support you. I want to be a champion for you. And so just like we talk about customer advocacy, there needs to be advocates for customers. Like it needs to go in the opposite direction too, where you're fighting for them, you're cheering for them, you're giving them opportunities. And so that's when it comes down to it. A lot of brands get in trouble because, or they have initiatives that don't work the way that they intended. And it's like, well, we did all the things, we went through the checklist. And it's like, but at the end of the day, people can tell if you care.
That's interesting. So it's not just amplifying the moments that have to do with the brand, but really identifying who your amplifiers are and amplifying their moments, whether it has to do with their brand, whether it has to do with your brand or not.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Through your fractional work, what are the subtle warning signs inside of a scaling business that indicate they urgently need dedicated CCO level leadership and help?
When their support and their social teams look very different. Because social and support teams a lot of times are handling the same things. It's just one's public facing and one's internal. And so when you see that, like, those two teams are operated differently and they're not seeing a lot of the same patterns, that's usually a red flag, because that means something's happening where they're not aligned. The other thing would be is when you do see collaboration within your team, but it's for, like, I find that whenever there's like a massive campaign showing up, everyone's finally able to like show up, come together. There's a massive run of show deck. Like, everyone knows their part to play. But if you don't have that for CX, or you don't have that for like the overall experience, huge. Another red flag is when there's a policy change that seems obvious from the outside looking in that people were going to get mad. And then everyone's like shocked, like, oh, never mind. We changed our mind. We're not going to do that. That's a massive red flag, because that means there was probably a canary somewhere in the company that either was heard, but they didn't do what they said, or they've tried to like blow the alarm so many times that they've given up and they're just quiet now. But yeah, it's misalignment. You're looking for misalignment. You're looking for internal versus external, not saying the same language. It's all of that. That means that you don't have a central force trying to bring everything together. We like to talk about like the single source of truth, but we usually only talk about that in terms of a tech stack. Like, where does the truth live? You need a person who is that single source of truth. And it honestly, in my opinion, should be the CEO. But that person is usually doing too much. So then you need either a chief of staff, or you need a CCO, or you need somebody who can be that single source of truth. So it's not just like, where does all the data live? But like, no, where is like the North Star live? Like, when we're having all of this stuff go down, like, what is like the full on truth here? You need a person for that. And so I like having a CCO, because I think you need someone who is always going to be there, come rain or shine, to be like, hey, I understand why we're doing this. Like, the money makes sense. This is going to piss off the customers.
Yeah, the voice of the customer, like you said.
You need someone at the table that's fighting for them, who's going to be like, I totally get that this is going to add like $5 million of revenue. They're going to be mad. Like, you need someone who's like, you don't have to listen to me. I wish you would, but I'm going to say this in the meeting. So when there's backlash, that you're going to be like, we should have listened.
Can weigh the cost.
Yeah.
You've long advocated for using social listening as an audience intelligence system rather than just for crisis management. What valuable insights do brands miss when they only monitor surface level mentions?
There's a lack of patterns. So you're not seeing the patterns that are coming up. You're probably not seeing the people who are regularly talking about you. You're also, if you're only looking at mentions, you're only seeing the people who are tagging you because they want you to see that. There's a lot of conversations that they're talking about your brand, but because they didn't at you, you're not seeing it. But it could be the best thing you've ever seen. It could be the worst thing you've ever seen. There's a lot of, like we talk about, like treat your customers like influencers because they are actively having conversations in public spaces, on social media, in private communities, in group chats. They're having these conversations whether you are participating or you can see them or not. But if you do have the ability to do social listening and can track them, then that's intel, that's opportunities for you to maybe save somebody, that's opportunities for you to come in and de-escalate something, that's an opportunity for you to like surprise and delight somebody. There's opportunities for you to save relationships, make relationships stronger, make someone feel seen and heard, all of these things, all because you paid attention. And usually brands only do it if it becomes so viral that you can't ignore it. But there's opportunities for you to do that where it's like, this is great. A great example of this is Dr. Pepper. So there was a girl who did a jingle on TikTok where it was a Dr. Pepper jingle. She's like, if I was going to do a jingle for Dr. Pepper, this is what it was. And it blew up completely. And so what happens is everyone's seeing this. It starts like wildfire. People are doing their own versions. They're doing their own riffs. It's basically like an entire weekend of Dr. Pepper ads that are not ads, like huge. And it gets to the point where we're all wondering, like, okay, I hope Dr. Pepper's paying you. I hope they're going to pay you for this. Like, I hope you're going to get taken care of. And so then we turn out to, like, I think it was the national championship game, the national football championship game, where she has a thing, and she's obviously paid, very well paid. They get the jingle and it's a celebration. And it kind of says, like, you understood the assignment, you paid attention, you jumped on the moment, you did the right thing. And it makes you feel emotionally connected to the brand because you're like, you get it, you pay attention. And at the end of the day, social media, like if we didn't have this inherent narcissistic need to be seen and heard, like no one's on social media. Like the whole thing is like, oh, you're creating this because you want someone to look at you. Like that's why we're all here. That's why everyone's posting. If you didn't care, you'd go home. Like you don't need to do it. And so it's a huge opportunity for brands to say, I see you, I hear you. Do you want to do something? Do you want to partner? Can I help you? That's a really important feeling. And it's a very humanistic feeling. Like we need that ability to say, like, they saw me, they made me feel special. That's huge.
As companies deploy AI agents and automated workflows across frontline customer touchpoints, we talked a little bit about this when people get trapped in workflows or get the wrong name sent to them. How can they increase operational speed by deploying these new tools without eroding the human empathy, essentially, for the customer relationship?
So if you've ever driven down a mountain, I live in the mountains of Virginia, so we have like a lot of the steep things. And there's always, depending on how steep the mountain is, there is an off-ramp in case the truck loses control. And there's a way for them to basically, like, you can run. And if your brakes fail or if you're sliding or whatever, you need that for automation. You need that for customer care. And so on an easy road, you don't need an emergency ramp. You don't, like, easy peasy. It's convenient. I just have a couple questions. This is an easy, frequently asked question. We're good to go. But in an emergency and high stakes situations and high stress, high emotionality, you're theoretically going to need a human. You're going to want someone to be accountable. You're going to want someone who can do judgment, who can have context and nuance, who can hold your hand, who can do all the things. So I'm fine with automation. I'm fine with using the data as things improve to make it a more convenient experience for them. But there are still going to be humans who need an emergency off-ramp. They're going to need a human. They're going to be screaming at you, like pressing 0 20 million times. You're like, human, talk to a human, operator. Like, they're going to scream it. And so for me, the litmus test I like to do, because I'm a geriatric millennials, I remember having like the one phone in the kitchen with like the really long cord that went on for miles. And I remember the ability to hang up on somebody. and be able to slam the phone down. And it was delicious. And it was so good because not only could I feel the idea that I hung up on you in rage, but the other person, it made a specific kind of tingly sound where you knew you got hung up on, like you knew this, like, it didn't just like click, it like, you know, you got slammed the phone down on you. It's the same thing. In high emotional situations, we want someone to yell at, we want someone to cry, we want someone to hear us. We need a human. And it's not just to give us the answer, but we need that release. And so you need an emergency on-ramp. So what I would think about is if you look at all the reasons why people are contacting you, why people need customer care, why people are trying to get help, look at all the reasons and figure out and segment them by, hey, this is easy. This is not high stress. This is fine. That's easy. This person, let's say that like they're in their dashboard's broken. And because of that, they can't get in touch with their customers. They can't get in touch with their finances. They can't run their business today. That's not a chatbot situation. That is my business is on fire. Everything is broken. I feel completely powerless. I need someone to hold my hand, tell me to calm down and walk me through this. That is something where like the first thing should be, okay, this is my problem. I'm going to want a human. I'm going to want a human here. It's too high stress. So what I would do is audit the entire thing, segment. High emotion, not high emotion. High stress, not high stress. And everything that is not high stress, not high emotion, it's an easy peasy road. Very easy, very sunny. There's no bad weather. You're fine. You don't need an emergency on-ramp. But anything that is remotely high stress, high emotion, high accountability needing, that needs to have an emergency off-ramp. That needs to have a human in the loop because there's only so far they're going to be able to get. And a lot of times they need more than that. They need more than the answer. They need to be assured that things are going to be okay.
Is it also just about optionality? Like I have no problem dealing with an AI customer service chatbot if it can get me the result I want, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But then, you know, if it's not working, so to speak, or if I don't feel like I'm getting the result I want, then I do want to maybe chat with a human. And then if that doesn't work, I do want to get on the phone and talk to a human.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, I want to talk to a human in the United States. You know, there's like levels of escalation. So do you think it's also about like creating that hierarchy of, hey, you know, we need different options for different people based on how urgent the moment might feel, but also their communication style. Like you said, how old are they? I'm an old millennial too. So I have that similar, you know, want to be able to find a phone number if I feel like it, if it's, you know, a $5,000 Airbnb refund I'm trying to get or something like
exactly. That. No, exactly. No, well, that functionality and that optionality is what it's doing is it's empowering them to let them choose their own adventure. So, and a lot of times when you're contacting support for however little or big it is, you're calling because you weren't able to fix it on your own. So you feel kind of powerless. So by creating optionality, what you're doing is you're empowering them to choose what's best for them, knowing that like, hey, we can change track at any time. If like the chatbot doesn't work for you, there's always a human here if you need anything. That's going to calm them down. It's going to make them feel like they have choice. It's going to feel like it's going to give them a sense of empowerment when they feel powerless. All great things.
In your book, you explore how buyer expectations have fundamentally shifted. What's the single biggest misconception legacy brands have about modern customer loyalty?
They think that it's fleeting, and it's not fleeting on its own. Like they think that customers are fickle instead of realizing that they played a role in why they are fickle. And so if you have given somebody, so for a great example is they'll talk about like how customers aren't loyal instead of asking why aren't they loyal anymore? Like what have we given them? So for me, it's like, I think it's a really great example of, especially in B2B, one of the things that bothers me is you'll go through and you onboard, you do your stuff. Every now and then you do tickets. You might have a dedicated CSM. You might not, depending on like what level of service you're at. You don't talk to a lot of people unless there's a lot of problems. And then 3 months before your renewal, this new person shows up and wants to be your best friend and can't talk to you enough. But it happens almost every company. 3 months out, there's like, it's like a timer somewhere, like 3 months out, this little fairy shows up to boop you on the shoulder and be like, hi, I'm your new best friend. And I'm going to walk you through everything. So in 3 months, you're going to renew. And I'm like, where have you been this whole year? Because either I've had a great experience, but I probably wasn't being handheld like this. Or maybe I've had a horrible time. Maybe I've gotten to the point where I've stopped doing tickets because the tickets don't get resolved. But you don't know because all you see is like, well, Christina hasn't done a ticket in 3 months. I guess everything's fine. And now you show up to tell me how much you love me and how it's been great working with you. You haven't been working with me. You just showed up. I don't know who you are, but you're going to make sure that I renew in 3 months. It's that. Yeah. It's very weird to me, but it's like best practice. It's like what everyone's everyone's on the same cadence of 3 months out. This new buddy shows up and this is how you get the renewal, instead of what little tiny things can we do throughout the year so that when that person shows up in 3 months, it's like, hey, we can go ahead and do, I already have the paperwork done.
Yeah. It's just consistency, right? It's like, you don't even need that sales window if you've delivered consistent value through your product and your customer success touch points. Then maybe the renewal is assumed versus something you need to like handhold so much.
Yep, exactly.
Interesting. When a company suffers a major public mistake or product failure, what does a system level trust restoration plan look like in practice?
They need to not only figure out how to say I'm sorry in the press release that's attached to it, because that tends to be like the thing is we'll do an Instagram post that's just words, and then we'll probably do a press release or an email campaign. There needs to be an underlying investigation or understanding or a pinpointing of why did this happen in the first place, what preceded it, and what could have happened to prevent it in the first place. If nothing could have prevented it in the first place, what guardrails can we put in place systematically, internally, to make sure that that doesn't happen again? You need to not only say like, oops, our bad, I'm so sorry. It needs to be, oops, our bad, are so sorry. And here is what caused all this to happen in the first place. Here's the steps that we're taking in order to prevent this from happening again. This is going to be a part of our SOP from moving on so that we can prevent this from happening. It can't just be, I'm sorry, here's a Band-Aid. It's, we're not going to play near the cliff anymore. We're not going to do all these other things. Like we're going to have preventative measures so that this no longer becomes a thing, because it's not enough to say I'm sorry anymore. We've all seen a brand do the whole, like, we're so sorry that happened, or that wasn't our fault, but we're still sorry, or this is what happened and we're going to investigate. And then you never hear anything else. Brands are really good at apologizing, but never good about like showing the work afterwards. And if you really want to repair that relationship and you really want to build that trust up again, you have to show your work. It's just like any other relationship. If someone hurt you and betrayed you, the I'm sorry doesn't do so much. I need you to show up again. I need you to prove to me that you're not that person anymore. I need you to prove to me you're not going to behave like that anymore. That takes time, long game. You got to keep showing up. You got to keep pouring back into the relationship and showcasing that this is who you are moving forward. And a lot of brands are still playing short game, which is why they do the apology, they do the press rounds, they do that, and then they're kind of done after that.
Looking ahead, as market noise increases and acquisition costs remain high, how will the brands that cultivate true fan armies outcompete those relying solely on ads?
They're going to beat them. They're going to win. It's the Chewies of the world. They're going to show up. They're going to show up en masse. They're going to show up unpaid. They're going to show up. And more than anything else, they show up and are heard and are trusted. I know that when someone's telling me about their dog and they're showing me the painting and are showing me it's not only they were good to me, it's here's the evidence. Here's the proof. And then I see someone else have a very similar story. And what they've done, what Chewy has done that I think is incredibly powerful is that they've operationalized empathy, which is incredibly powerful. And so I've seen enough stories to be like, there's absolutely probably an Asana form or a Google form somewhere where you can basically escalate and say like, hey, this customer had this happen. Can we put them in this process so they can get flowers and a condolence card or maybe a painting or maybe like, there's clearly an infrastructure. It's the way that I've seen it done over and over again. There's clearly a process in place for that. I don't work at Chewy, so I can't tell you like exactly what it looks like, but it's operationalized. Like they clearly have a part of, this is the SOP. This is a part of who we are. This is the process it takes for this. This is how you put a customer into this workflow so that they can get something, so that we can take care of them, all of those things. And that they show up in mass, and you believe it every single time because there's evidence. Like there's not an AI video or this Instagram post that's very cold. It's real people sharing real stories, showcasing how a brand showed up for them, and you believe that. And then you want to be a customer of them because I want to be treated that way. Like when someone's taking a review and they pick a brand because they saw enough good reviews, they may not realize what they're doing, but they are essentially choosing that brand because that is the experience I want. I want to buy this product. I want to have this service. I want to use that vendor because I want to be able to say this review. This is the results I expect. This is what I want, and this is why I'm choosing it. And so if you're taking good care of your customers and that is the voice of your brand, that becomes the brand. Like if I've been seeing this a lot everywhere is when I hear people talk about brand, I'm hearing the exact same things that I say as a CX person, because the voice of the customer, the word of mouth, that becomes your brand. A brand can say how great they are, but if your customers are saying how horrible you are, what's the truth? What is the actual brand? It's that you're horrible. It's what the customers say.
I think it's also frontline empowerment, right? It's as much as, putting somebody into a great workflow at Chewy, but Ritz-Carlton employs every frontline employee $5,000 to create a great customer experience for their guests, whether that's, buying a metal detector to find a missing wedding ring on a beach, or returning a stuffed animal that was left behind and doing photos of the stuffed animal at different places around the hotel. And sending those emails to the kid, it's like, we all know about these viral examples, but the Ritz-Carlton brand knows that their average customer value is $250,000 over lifetime, and $5,000 is a short amount of money to invest into that relationship and powering that word of mouth engine. So I think all great things that, us consumer brands and B2B brands alike can aspire to. Well, Christina, I've had a great time having this conversation. Thank you so much for your expertise and your willingness to share so much useful information with our audience. If folks want to learn more about your thinking, buy the books, catch up with your thought leadership, where do you want to send people to stay in touch?
Come connect with me on LinkedIn. You can buy my book, Transforming Customer Brand Relationships, anywhere you buy books, but just come and say hi on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm there. I'm probably never going to leave. It's my Diet Coke of choice of the social media platforms. So just come and say hi.
Let's go. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. If you are watching the show for the first time, don't forget to give us a follow or subscribe. An honest review on whatever podcast platform you happen to be listening on is how we find a bigger audience. So go ahead and do that. If there is a brand out there that needs to invest in their customer experience, customer loyalty channel, all these things work together. So just in their customers in general, maybe a B2B marketer who you think would enjoy the conversation that I had with Christina today, or just someone who would enjoy the show, don't forget to share. And with that, I will see you all again soon. Thanks again, Christina.